Stormy Daniels chart. I'm gonna put it up, and we take a look at that. And somebody put it on Facebook, and there are a lot of questions under it. You sure this is the chart? Well, I'm gonna put it up, and you're gonna tell me if we're sure that's the chart or not, and perhaps why she's even doing what she's doing. By the way, Stormy is not gonna be the one that undermines this whole thing. Neither is the little co-ed. There's a third person who's filing very quietly, who's got not only photographs, but written documents. She's got stuff, huh?
The one that was the playmate?
No,
Not her?
it might be. We have Stormy, and then we have the playmate with the bunny hop.
Yeah.
Not her. There's a third one. Very quiet. She's got the goods on this guy. She's got some very convincing argument. So this is the one they're all thinking is going to really, if there's any undermining going to go on, they're thinking this will be it. What's the first thing we do when we look at a chart?
First house.
The most important house.
First house. This is really what's the most important thing. Now, I'm out of the way so everybody can look at it, so I don't want to walk in front of it. But you can see this as we move, and then we'll add some stuff to it that maybe even more. So, if I'm looking at Sag as the first house, what am I looking for?
Jupiter.
I'm looking for Jupiter, and look at it, right on Cancer point. And what is Jupiter doing at that position in Cancer?
It's exalted and frustrated.
It's exalted and frustrated. It's got two things going on. Because it's at 29 degrees, 27,
We gotta get our
29.
thing out.
That doesn't mean it does things good.
Well, it has issues that have to be resolved.
Gotcha.
It's right on the Scorpio house.
And it's right on the house of Scorpio to begin with. Well, what's interesting here is that
Oh.
secondarily, not only is the moon the second supportive actor of the first house, but it's also the ruler of where the sign is here. So we have this in Scorpio, and this is in the house of Scorpio. We've got a couple of things here that are gelling, so to speak. What does moon in Scorpio tell anybody? That tells me that too.
It's not, and yeah, it's not doing well though.
It's not good. It's in its fall. And so things to accumulate don't accumulate well. And so under the sign of Scorpio, when you think about it, Scorpio is what we eliminate in life. This is our elimination point. And so moon here is things she needs to eliminate. There's stuff, and they're emotional things. Remember we talked about the baggage that you're looking at, and it's in a water sign, so there's the baggage. There's a water sign, here's some baggage. Earth sign, here's some baggage. Earth sign, here's some baggage. Oh my God, look over here, I got Mars, water sign, baggage. Sun is in Pisces, baggage. The only thing she's got going is she's got Earth, a fire sign here, and a fire Mercury here.
Why
And
is
Venus.
Why is it baggage down here? I know I understand the Earth, but why is it baggage down
Water.
This is water.
Pisces.
Pisces, all Pisces.
Oh, those are
And the
Pisces.
Venus is in air. The Venus is in air.
The Venus is in air. I passed that by. I passed that
It's
by
in the, oh,
because of the fact she thinks that's one of her ways to get the hell out of this.
oh,
Is that because of the this is a sextile. Remember Jupiter and air, so it's fire and air, and there it is. It's in an air sign. It's working almost to a sextile. I didn't draw it that way, but it's almost to a sextile to the first house. So therein lies some kind of a release. Please.
Plus she has Neptune on the ascendant, which ties in that moon, Jupiter, Venus, and the moon Jupiter's in trine.
Right. Neptune is a triad sign. It's a triad planet, and it includes in its energy to be what it is, Venus, the moon, and Jupiter. That's what it does. And it always costs you something when you see it transit. It's a horrible situation. Well, where is Neptune now? It's transiting that Mars, isn't it?
mhm.
So she's on time, in a way, with what she's doing. And this may cost her. This may cost her for trying to break this out. It may cost her. We don't know
all
yet.
kinds of stuff. Like as soon as like the pupil size that she had, and she's automatically under some kind of influence in that you can't really. She's discredited.
Yeah, there's all kinds of discreditation going on with that.
She has an addictive chart.
She does?
She's got Moon, Mars, Jupiter in trine and water.
So she's got this stuff, she's like, yeah, she's in that, she's captivated.
Yeah.
Can't get in, can't get out, remember we talked about that. So here we have Neptune is pretty, that's at 6 degrees, and I would call that influential, further than I like to keep it within 1 or 2 degrees like that, but it's there's something. And when you look at her, she certainly has a very human face. She's in a human sign, air, they're human signs. And so that gives her that look, la look, as you might say. And so now you look at the people she's gonna involve herself with, which is gonna be the 7th house, which is clients. And look what she's looking at. She wants them to have money, big money. So Donald Trump fits this chart, and she fits this chart so well because of the fact that she has the Scorpio moon in the 10th house, and the 5th house is exalting that ruled by Venus. So if we look at a Venus ruler 5, the profession at 10, fun for the profession, making money at it, down here in Venus. So you can pretty much see the fun, making money through fun, in a very serious way, to make money. So both of these planets, both of these signs are ruled by Venus, and it's looking at that very strongly. See what we're looking at? I'm absolutely totally in love with her because she has that 13 degrees Mars, but
Did she start coming out with this stuff in the fall? I don't remember when, because I was just thinking, because then it would be Saturn going over her ascendant opposing the other.
yeah, there's a couple of things that she started coming out with, but you
Plus the
remember
Neptune.
Saturn was in the sign of Sag just before the inauguration, when she supposedly was big. So you can see that this is where that might be where the repercussions are. But the process here is that the Saturn-Pluto thing going through her 2nd house isn't going to do too much here. But what it is going to do is it's eventually going to oppose that Jupiter. This is why I think that this may be costly to her. But it could be annulled for other reasons, but we don't know. We don't know what those other 2 people are going to bring in to support her story. But this was put on the internet, and true to form, somebody says, "Oh, as soon as I saw that moon in Scorpio, I knew what she was doing." Well, aren't you astute? So I wrote that. I said, so you've read her entire life with just one planet?
Wouldn't she also be looking at, I think Jupiter's retrograde hitting that Uranus that ties in the ruler of the 7th too?
Yeah. So we're having some stuff going on here. That Jupiter has gone over the moon, and now it's wanting to go back again. It's going to bump off that Uranus again. So we're having a big. This is really where the play is what she's talking about. And she has made some very unusual claims and very startling. So you can see here that we got some real vibratory messages coming through, and she's stirring up the pot.
I'm still trying to figure out what her problem is, because she says, and I quote, "I'm not a victim, it was consensual."
That's Trump.
No, that's her. I saw her last night on
I know,
TV.
she wasn't a victim with Trump.
But she got threatened,
See right there?
she said afterwards.
Oh, yeah,
Somebody-
by that
Lawyer?
Cohen
Or
or
somebody who,
Cohen.
yeah,
Cohen. And who's he a lawyer for, Trump?
I think so, but somebody either
And
represented.
they sent somebody over to
so-
threaten her and shit like that.
Yeah.
And that, that goes with the territory. Thugs think they're thugs, so they do thuggish things. All right. So here there is an age-old problem. The number 12, the ruler of the normal 12, is sitting here in the 3rd house, which is communication. So she's told to shut the hell up. And Pisces is going to do that, because Pisces does that. I'm going to see if I can find something here. God, if you guys are really cool, and I am too, I want to read something that came over the internet today. It was so freaking bitching.
No, question? No,
He's looking something up.
all right.
I want to take a look at this. We should have done this, but now that this is coming up, I want to see.
Don't
if
know
this
what this is.
No, this is just on somebody's,
Mercury going retrograde? back over, her Mercury is cracking stuff open?
Yeah, you're looking at that too.
Yeah,
I don't know how far, does it go that far back?
I think
'Cause
it
it
goes to-
started at 16.
I think it goes to 4.
Well, that'll go back over,
Yeah.
the partner.
Yeah. The partner, yes.
Or, you know, the other-
Yeah,
the
no,
other.
I'm not jumping
Yeah.
ahead enough. It goes to 4. and then-
Yeah, so it's gonna be back over that, so that'll tie in the 7th and the 9th. Leo retrograde goes back over, which will tie in Mars.
What she wrote was very Piscean. She stayed in relationships because it turned her on thinking she was needed. She stayed in relationships that were abusive because she thought that she needed to rescue these people. She stayed in the relationship so she could help him finance whatever it was. And she writes this whole list out why she was sabotaging her whole life. And then it makes the turn where she goes, but then I started to do this. And she's a life coach. And she started writing about how you solve it. So it's really a great solution for the House of Pisces of the 12th house. And the way she puts it out is brilliant. So I friended her. So when she says, okay, we're friends, I'm going to ask her, is it okay if I post that on my site? Because it's a long read, but it is so worth it. It's really one of the, every now and then a gem just shows up in life. And you just got to grab it if you can. So I'm hoping she will. So, stay tuned, folks, and I'll see if I can get it. It is so perfect for what this is because of the fact that that 3rd house is the lower mind. It is the mind where we don't think beyond the obvious. It's the mind where we need to be educated to be a higher self. Remember, this is those numbers we saw. This is the solution. So when we look at that house down there and we see that 3rd house, it's a lower mind. It's a smaller mind. It does not know how to relate to things that are being told it. This is why children at this age, they just accept. Because no matter what you tell them, they have no recourse to look to anything to balance it or look at it to weigh it. I don't call that process, but it's a process that we use to see how we figure out if this is good or bad or not. Well, they don't have that. They don't have that erudition yet. So this is the same thing. This is a house where it lacks erudition. And here she is. She was abused as a child. I think that came out in the conversation. And she does mention that, and even through all the abuses that she's gone through and everything else. But she hung in there until she said, wait a minute. So the Me Too movement is part of what drew her out. And here it is. Here's the Me Too movement. We're going on Saturn related to that North Node. Well, the North Node is a Jupiter node. Those are good relationships we have. But when Saturn taints it, it's relationships that are supposedly good, but aren't.
Responsibility,
So they be what?
like a responsibility.
Yeah, and now don't you tell mom, and don't you tell your uncle, and don't you tell anybody. Well, shit howdy. And so this is where this comes in. So you have to live with that, and that's the higher mind versus the lower mind. All this Me Too thing is bringing out all of this stuff that's 12th house issues with a lot of women and guys, So this is possibly, part and parcel of what this is about. The world's changing, and you're going to see a lot more women in charge. I made this statement back in the 60s that we're getting ready because back in 1949 on November 11th, there was a birth, and that person is going to give birth to somebody who's going to give birth to somebody who is going to step forth in the world and take it over. I thought it was Hillary until I started doing some back engineering and realized it wasn't. Yeah, it's stepping forward because the whole thing in 1949 shifted from a strong patriarchal process to now a matriarchal process, and that takes time. It takes generations to do that. So I figured 2 generations. So 49, 69, 1 generation, 89, 2 generations, 2009 we're in that generation, and they're waking up. And now this generation is waking up. So that process, and again, sextiles, a generation is a sextile. So there it is. So we processed this, and this is what we're doing. So you can see here that she put up with this, but she decided to come forth. But this is so strong of that water retentive, if only kind of a chart that I wish I would have.
Oh.
But she does have that. She does have this sextile going for her. So this is what's giving her some credit. This is giving her some courage, And then of course she has Mercury in Aries, and that's also sextile that. So you can see here that she's got the Venus movement with Mercury pulling it forth. So you can see why she's putting that out. And it is the foundation of her whole chart. It's right in the 4th house. This is where the outcome is. I'm sitting right here banging it. So this is it. So you can see how the sextile here is projecting forward. But the other sextiles are retentive. See where we're going?
But you said that, not but you mentioned earlier that you don't think it'll end well, or at least she'll be dragged through the mud or greatly diminished because of the Saturn opposition.
Possibly. She's got stuff here that,
Yeah.
you know, Saturn in the 1st house,
Yeah.
Pluto in the 1st house, Neptune playing, Uranus on her Neptune. Neptune is on her Mars, which is what she see. Mars rules at Aries down here, where the Mercury is, what she's talking about. Well, that Neptune on Mars is what people are saying. She doesn't have that kind of credibility.
Right.
And I love the question, which is a good question. Who the hell's financing this lawyer she's got? Because he is not cheap by any means. So somewhere, and this is where collusion starts showing up. So this is where that Neptune is showing up. Who's financing this lawyer?
When you're doing that sextile thing that you did before, and her 2nd and her 4th, Saturn and Mars, are in opposition, how do you look at that when you're looking at something like that?
Well,
They don't help. It's one side or the other. It's her belief, someone else's belief.
she's gone. She decided not to do Saturn. I don't care what my uncle said. I'm just going to have to go for this, or what my dad said. I should have to go for it. You have to pick one side or the other.
Right.
Is what she's doing.
But so she always has that problem with the 2nd house, 2nd, 4th,
It's
home security, money.
It's an
an
issue
issue.
that has to be balanced.
Does that show more the issue of her? I don't know what happened to her in childhood, but if I look at just mother father, it doesn't look so bad. You know, Venus in Aquarius, Mars in Pisces, unless they're retrograde, it doesn't look.
Well, the Mars in Pisces has a problem because guess what? It's in the 12th house of secrets.
Oh, even though it's not in the 12th house,
Well, it's in its own 12th. Mars is in Pisces.
but it's in its triplicity.
It is in its triplicity, which means it's going to do something.
But how is it? It's just because the ruler is not the natural ruler is in the 12th house, though, too.
Well, it's in Pisces.
Oh,
it's
the
in its
12th
own
house.
12th
Oh,
of Daddy. So
oh.
Daddy's 12th out. He's guilty.
I'm sorry. I see. Okay.
See what's going on?
Oh.
So he's got some factors here that's put this thing together.
So
for her.
even though that's strong in its triplicity, because of by house placement, it's showing secrets.
But it's also showing ability to move. So
And the mom is in the mom's 5th house, so there might be some kind of partying or something with the mom. Is that-
I
you're
don't
doing that?
know if that's going to be the case, but you know, there's some stuff here that just,
Okay.
you know, obviously the air thing with mom, and which is also an air point, might be.
She's too
A
busy
lot
for
of
the
moms
kid.
do that. A lot of moms just shine it on. They pretend like they don't know.
Can't handle it.
And so, yeah, they're married to this guy, and you know,
Gotta keep it all together.
how do you, and there it is. There comes that goddamn Pisces thing, and the 3rd house thing, and the 12th house thing, where people do what they do. These are the things you look for in charts. How are they going to cope with the issues they've got? Because this is an issue everywhere. The whole chart's an issue. And so she's got a lot of them. And here she's just trying to get rid of them. And so I'm thinking, okay, let's see what happens with all of this. So, you know, Pluto will play a role. It's going to be doing some stuff. And that Neptune is really huge. It's her 12th house to begin with, close to the ascendant.
For money.
And so that whole process is saying, well, what did you do? What did you do? And so, and how are you doing it? So you can see the question here comes through Neptune. When Neptune makes a transit on one of your natal planets, be sure to look at the house it rules. Because that house the planet it's going over, that rulership is going to tell you a lot. It's going to cost you money, it's going to cost you something, but it's going to cost you something because Neptune takes it away. It's when you have a foggy day, that's Neptune, right? What happens when the sun comes out?
See what's going on.
The sun takes it. So everything that was wet that Neptune had now dries up with it, goes up with it. So Neptune is a taker. Don't think it's a wonderful planet. It isn't. They give you some nice ideals. They'll let you think, but if you're aware that you could be taken here, you won't be. You'll be able to see the probabilities or possibilities Once you know that damage can be done, you can now look at other areas to see how you can fix it. And this is the idea of understanding astrology, especially the negatives. How can you fix it? Well, some of us ignore the signal and gotta fix it later, and some of us can see it beforehand and fix it before anything happens. This is what we do. This is why we're learning this. We're not cheating our fate, we're manipulating it so it works more in our benefit. And this is really very important. And this is what she's doing right now. I didn't do it. Did you do her progressed?
No,
Because her progressed chart, if we just do, where is she, 30?
I can pull it up. Do you want me to do that?
Oh, yeah, why don't you? Let's,
Just progress on its own?
yeah, just a secondary, the other, or tertiary, either one's good.
Which would you prefer? I'm gonna do it differently. I don't have it in here.
Because this is what we want to do with what's going on in the news, is see if we can grind ourselves through it and go, not again, but it's always again. And everybody seems to be so surprised that somebody else is getting fired in Trump's field.
Oh, man.
I'm not surprised.
It's a daily
Well,
revolving door.
what was this show?
Who's next?
What was his show?
They're not just
What was the most famous 2 words in his show?
You're fired.
You're fired. He loves to deny people processes and things. He loves this. Remember, he has Mercury out of bounds and Saturn is his chart. So denying people stuff is one of his real big joys in life.
What's that?
He just likes to say no. But there are many people who are ultra rich, and I'm saying ultra, who are in that same boat. They don't want anybody else to have what they have. They want to be able to walk through the crowd and say, don't you fucking wish you were me. Because that's their whole thing. Well, I always say, yes, brother, can you spare a dime? And they go, yeah, no. So, but the process is, this is his chart. I put it up, we got all, and isn't this interesting that the shit hit the fan when that eclipse was on his Pluto? And isn't it interesting that the shit also hit the fan when Mars went over his opposing moon sun eclipse point? That's
Yeah,
what it's
a lot of squares coming, and Uranus on the midheaven with Jupiter going to go back over.
Okay,
Ben?
call it out so I
Okay.
can just write.
So ascendant is Aquarius, or you're doing this is just progressed by itself. Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, just give me numbers.
Okay, so
Planets.
5 degrees Aquarius ascendant. Second house Pisces. And
Yeah,
then there's
planets. Just
Venus, Mercury, Mars, and the Moon all in the second house in Aries.
Venus.
Venus at 2, Mercury at 7, Mars at 14, Moon at 18, all in Aries.
Okay, it's an Aries.
And then in the third house, there is the Sun at 4 of Taurus and Chiron at 9, and you're going to have Uranus go over that. Actually. And then Jupiter has moved to 0 Leo, below the 7th house.
Leo is.
Saturn at 7 of Virgo, toward the end of the 7th.
7.
And then North Node 16 Virgo in the 8th.
Okay.
Pluto at 17 Libra, opposing Mercury, Mars, Moon.
Here's where the fall is.
When Uranus right on the midheaven's 21 Scorpio and Uranus is 19. And Neptune's 20 in the 11th of Sag.
Neptune is still here. Okay, so you can see, thank you.
Where was Neptune again?
It's still right there with her. It doesn't go far in progressed charts.
I meant,
In her natal, it was on the ascendant.
above it.
This is her progressed, and it's right here, right there with it. It's probably did a little jig and went back and forth and came back again. So that's probably what we're looking at there. But when you see all these planets in the area, this is giving her the impetus to move forth. You see.
And opposite Pluto.
And being opposite of Pluto like that is really where, this is where the damage can be done. But you notice that she's trying to get rid of that process. So the whole thing here that's moving through is that this has given her the impetus. Remember that Mars, Neptune is on this Mars. And so looking at this, we're saying, now we've come forth. Where's the air that's going to support this? Well, there doesn't seem to be much.
Oh.
The only good thing she's got going is that Jupiter is into Leo. She might be able to prove her point that way, but what way? Well, we'll have to see. But you can see that that is the impetus to drive her on. And Uranus is going to go over that Taurus point sometime in May, probably around June. So if there's any repercussions coming her way, June might be the time that we would call for it, because that's when Uranus is going to make that approach. Because this is a double Uranus up here. It's in that it's looking to oppose it, although a long distance. See, we're looking at 20 degrees, but that's still in the process. So sign to sign, we're looking at that opposition there. We're looking at that Pluto process. This is a hell of a chart. She stepped forward. You got to give her bravery points on this one.
So you're saying, you said damage happening to her or from her because of the Pluto
I think
opposite?
to her,
Yeah.
because of the fact that Uranus is going to go over the sun,
Oh,
and that this double Uranus up here is,
yeah.
and it's in that nice secretive Scorpio. So if somebody walked up and told her to shut up before, they won't just tell her this time.
Wow.
So she's in danger, I think. I don't. That Pluto is always a dangerous point, and I think she's in danger with that. So this is a lot to do, and this opposition says a lot. It separates. She has to take one or the other. So we're going to see where she takes this. I don't wish her luck, but I don't wish her ill will. This is something that I would have expected. Only for two reasons. He's not one of the good old boys. And so he didn't go along with the party time. And anybody who's actually cheated got fired. They got fired because of doing something that was unethical. They didn't get fired because he just didn't like them. He had a good reason, and he stated these good reasons. Of course, they're overlooked, but they are good reasons. Yes, please.
The third woman is Summer Zervos,
Yes.
former contestant on the reality show.
Oh,
Right.
jeez, you're fired.
That's yes.
What's
You
the
ever
last
shot-
one?
Summertime. And
What
the
she
living
wants
was
to
easy.
win a legal battle in which she accuses Trump of defaming her and other accusers by calling them liars.
She's got stuff on her. Anyway, Summer seems to have the most dirt,
Mhm.
and she's very quiet about it. She's letting these other two do what they do. But you can see how the transits and the progressions or anything else that are moving along here is going to affect lives, and they do. They affect them in a very strong way. The point here is that we're looking at what's driving her forward, and we can see that these sextiles have a lot to say with it. And when she broke out of that Mercury thing and has started working on that very strongly, you can see that this whole process said she's got to talk. I mean, she had to. There's no way that all these planets passing over her natal Mercury could have kept her quiet. There's no way. And I don't care what she signed here as an agreement, that ninth house agreement thing. It may be, but that's what she's looking at as a way out. He didn't sign it. Well, anybody knows if the third party, the second party doesn't sign a contract, it's null and void. I mean, anybody knows that.
Why do you do that?
Because it was incriminating, so the lawyer
Oh,
did it for
jeez.
him.
Oh.
And it was even a fictitious name, I understand.
Wow.
Dennis. You see him as Dennis.
Yeah.
Close to Donald, isn't it? Dennis. Oh, God. So these are good charts. We have Suckerfield. We got one here. We can do his next week if you like. Yeah. The sextiles are really important. They're not enough, in my opinion. There's never been enough strength to them. But people have grand trines, and there's a couple in this class that do. They're locked into it or out of it, but the sextile will get them out, especially if there's a transit to it. It'll get them out of that problem. And if you're smart and you have a client that has that, you'll wait till something shows up. When you give counsel, you'll show them the way out.
Hmm.
And they'll see it while you're talking to them. So this is kind of an interesting one. But I thought this was a real good chart. And this is, I mean, to me, this is so her. Just a mutable chart with the with the cardinal angle for the work and the mutable people that she'll meet in life. Just totally cool. You know, and the Jupiter here on the 8th house cusp, you know, clients. Now look at the sun. It is in the sign of Pisces. And the ruler, once again, aligns up with the ascendant, and over here it is. It's a nice trine to the sun. So you can see where she was going with this all throughout the chart. It continually plays the game. It continually plays the game. And so we could go round robin with this all day long and just find more and more information. And you can do this with your own chart. You can go round and round and round. Just keep looking for little layers underneath it, especially the Anticia. Because when you start noticing the Anticia, now you get a real hit. Because there's a lot of things here, Anticia-wise, it's very, very interesting. All of these Anticias are in Libra, and that goes to the 10th house too. See? So the Anticia for the sign of Pisces goes right up into the 10th house again. So you can see that 3rd house is into the 10th. So now you can see the heavy drive for this success point. And then the Anticia of the moon, of course, goes to Gemini, which goes back to here. So here we have that processing. And the Anticia of the moon here is 29 goes to 1 degree 6th house. Well, if this is the father, this would be the father's sibling, wouldn't it? Because this is the dad, this is his money, and this is his brothers and sisters, the 3rd house. Well, there's the uncle. So, and there she is, the Anticia is that. So I have a feeling that the uncle was involved with part of the molestation that was going on. It just sort of talks to us this way. The Anticia of all these Aries planets is over here in Virgo, and it's touching on that Saturn, which is, of course, our superintendent of the planet right now. So we're going here, well, we're gonna do it.
Would you look at the fact that the moon in Scorpio in the 10th with the Anticia is 25 Leo, which would make her want to be known?
Well, a little bit, because of the fact that its Anticia is gonna go to Aquarius, and that Aquarius is gonna bring it back over again. So yeah, I would think so. I think that that'd be a contra Anticia.
I'm sorry, that's what I was looking at, the contra, I wasn't
it's a
adding that
contra
in my head.
Anticia. And that would work, because contra Anticia also drives us, but it's the Anticia that has more power.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the opposite point, and so it does have some, it gives us something. But it does talk a lot about that. So you can see that Venus here, again, very much in love with the moon because of the Anticia process. These are the things you need to always look at. You just bring the next thing to the next thing to the next thing, and just gives you more and more information. The Anticia of this position right here is 4 degrees Capricorn. And where was Saturn when this shit hit the fan?
Is it 4?
4 degrees Capricorn. So, this is good stuff. When you start looking at it and start looking at layers beneath what seems to be obvious, it's usually that little secondary onion skin that's going to give us some information. And so the whole thing keeps playing and playing. And now Neptune is at, the Anticia of Neptune is going to be 10 degrees, because you know you always subtract from 30. It's going to be 10 degrees Capricorn. Saturn is 8.
So
What's
might
gonna
be
happen?
something unseen, something unforeseen
What
coming.
unfolds and Saturn hits that Neptune.
That doesn't happen until like next
That
year,
might be
right?
girl number 3. So we're looking at Saturn at 10 degrees, it's 8. And we get a lot of changes around September. Jupiter changes signs. Uranus will already have gone into Taurus, so that changed signs. So there's a lot of things here that are like kicking in. So it's gonna be interesting to see about what this Taurus is gonna do for us, because that Taurus also says, look at Leo. And so.
Jupiter's gonna square all her Pisces planets
Yeah, and it's also hitting that.
and her Saturn.
So she may regret this, but this is saying right now she doesn't. But this is saying maybe, because it's an earth sign, and it's the earth is a sextile of that water. And so, that may be a regret. But out of the circumstances, this is pretty good. It's a good chart. I do not like the fact that all these planets are opposing Pluto.
Yeah.
And this is a high-end official up here. And here she is just
And her
trying to
death
live her life at home.
is the moon.
So, what can you say? I don't know. I'm not gonna say yes, but I'm not
Yes.
gonna rule
Her
that
8th
out.
house is the moon.
Oh,
But the circumstances here, this is a very good chart. I like the fact that we got so much that's obvious here to look at that really pulls us in. especially all this stuff here, rolling up to that 8th house, another secret house, keeping the secret, but when the money started coming forward, well, where'd it go?